Think your last camping trip was rough? Wait until you hear about these terrifying tales of outdoor adventures gone horribly wrong. From brutal animal attacks to deadly mistakes at the edge of cliffs, we've compiled 2 hours of the worst outdoor deaths in history, and we've got the chilling proof to back it up. Stick around because this is 2 hours of the worst deaths in the history of outdoor adventures, with proof.
It was October 3rd, 2022. Jörg Schnarr, a 67-year-old retired human resources director from Fulda, Germany, had just begun his holiday with his wife, Vera, and their close friends, Rainer and Andrea Nuchter. The couple planned to go on their dream safari in South Africa. The group had landed in Johannesburg earlier that day and were eagerly driving towards the Kruger National Park for a luxurious stay at Madluli Lodge. But they never made it to their accommodation. Kruger National Park is one of Africa's largest game reserves and a famous wildlife sanctuary. The park is home to the Big Five, and people worldwide come to see its iconic species, such as lions, buffaloes, leopards, elephants, and rhinos. When it happened, Jörg, his wife, and his friends were just 25 miles from the park's main gate. Their dream vacation was shattered before it even began. The friends were traveling through the farming village of Whitewater, in Mpumalanga province, with Jörg at the wheel, when a car swerved in front of their vehicle, blocking their path and preventing them from making it to the safety of the park. Inside the car were 3 armed men who wanted to rob Jörg's group. They ordered Jörg to stop the vehicle. They wanted everyone to step out, but 67-year-old Jörg Schnarr refused to stop the car. Instead, he decided to defy the 3 gunmen, probably meaning to protect his loved ones. Jörg locked the doors and started to reverse. It was a decision that would cost him his life. But as he did so, one of the gunmen opened fire, shooting Jörg at point-blank range through the window. The bullet lodged itself in Jörg Schnarr's upper body. The vehicle veered out of control, careening backward for some 330 feet before crashing into the wall of a local school. Jörg's wife and friends were in shock, fearing for their lives, but the attackers fled the scene empty-handed. Paramedics and police arrived swiftly, but it was too late. Jörg was beyond saving. He was found slumped over the wheel, having died almost instantly from the fatal gunshot wound. The South African Police Service launched an immediate search for the 3 suspects. The Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency offered complete trauma counseling to help the survivors cope with the horrific experience. The organization called the shooting an act of sabotage against the travel and tourism sector and offered a £500 reward for information leading to the murderer's capture. Police found one of the suspects in possession of the white Toyota Tazz automobile used in the gruesome murder. The suspects are thought to be connected to a series of business robberies in the area. Joseph Nyalunga, 35, Marshall Tsibo Mamba, 38, and Bonga Musa Fortune Matsani, 25, face charges of murder, attempted murder, and attempted hijacking. Their case has been transferred to the Mbombela High Court for trial. The trial is set for 2024. The attack has not only claimed the life of a beloved husband and friend, but has also cast a shadow over the reputation of the Kruger National Park, a haven for wildlife enthusiasts. 2023. Ka Hao Teo, a 40-year-old consultant trauma and orthopedic surgeon from the UK, was on a dream vacation with his wife, Sarah, his mother, Ina, and his young son, 2-year-old Hugo, in South Africa. The happy family spent that Thursday whale watching in Hermanus and viewing penguins at Betty's Bay. But what started as a beautiful day soon became a dark nightmare that changed their lives forever. After a fantastic day observing the natural wonders of South Africa, the Teo family set off back to Cape Town, but they came to a dead end when they got closer to the city. Directed by police, they were unwittingly led into the heart of a violent minibus taxi strike near the township of Nyanga. The driver, Ka Hao, was told to follow a white car ahead, and so he did, unaware that they were rushing towards an awful fate. The family noticed signs of unrest as they drove through the area. Car wheels were scattered everywhere, and pedestrians walked about uneasily. When they drove past a burnt-out bus, they knew something was wrong, but the bus was merely a sign of the terror to come. A man emerged from the crowd of protesters and approached their vehicle. It all happened so fast. The man didn't even stop as he pulled out his gun and fired, a single shot shattering the car's window and striking Ka Hao Teo in the head. Horrified, Ka Hao's mother, Ina, grabbed the steering wheel, desperately attempting to regain control of the Toyota RAV4. Some nearby locals rushed to the family's help, and together they managed to bring the car to a halt. Despite his wound, Ka Hao was still alive. Struggling to breathe, his family was terrified. A man, who had also been directed into Nyanga by the police, approached them. He told Sarah, Ka Hao's wife, that he'd seen the shooter and wanted to help, but he feared he'd be arrested. The man told Sarah to apply pressure on her husband's wound, hoping to buy him some time until help arrived. Except help never arrived, even though the family's car was now stopped near a police station. There were about 6 police officers at the scene, but according to Kar Hao's family, their attitude was baffling. The officers asked about what happened, but they did not move to help, as the family begged them to take Kar Hao to the hospital. According to the Teo family, the police officers stood around chatting as Kar Hao died slowly. The family pleaded with the police, fearing the worst. Sarah and Aina told them Kar Hao was a medic who saved lives, but this was not enough to make the officers agree to help. But with every passing minute, hope dwindled. An hour later, an ambulance finally arrived, but it was too late. Kar Hao Teo had died. According to his family, the police continued to fail them. They were merely instructed to visit the morgue the next day to identify Kar Hao's body, and then dismissed without further assistance. According to the family, the paramedics were the only ones who helped them and showed them empathy. The paramedics also contacted the British Embassy on the family's behalf. The South African Police Service acknowledged the family's right to file complaints, but refrained from addressing the allegations. No arrests have been made, and the family's plea for witnesses to come forward hangs in the air. Kar Hao Teo's death left a void not only in the hearts of his loved ones, but also in the medical community. His colleagues at Princess Alexandra Hospital in Harlow, Essex, remembered him as a dedicated and talented surgeon, a rising star in trauma and orthopedics.
On June 5, 2019, tragedy struck at 8 p.m. in Kruger National Park, known for its wild beauty. 2-year-old Courtney Netaman, a little boy filled with laughter and curiosity, found himself in the clutches of a nightmare that would haunt his family and the park for years to come. Courtney's father, Isaiah Netaman, was a hard-working man, spending his days as a water operator within the park's sprawling expanse. His wife, Sabine, often brought their son to visit him, turning his simple cottage into a haven of love and laughter amidst the rugged terrain. On the day of the tragedy, Isaiah returned home from work, eager to spend time with his family. Ever the adventurous spirit, Courtney followed his father's footsteps, his tiny hand clutching a toy truck as he explored the world around him. As evening descended, Isaiah settled into the routine of family life, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond the safety of his doorstep. Courtney, drawn by the allure of the wilderness, went outside in the night, his innocent curiosity leading him into a world of danger. Suddenly, the evening shattered with the sound of a mother's screams, echoing through the darkness like a cry for help. Isaiah rushed outside, his heart pounding with dread, only to find his worst fears realized. In the grasp of a leopard was his beloved son, his cries for help drowned out by the predator's roar. The leopard bit Courtney's neck and body repeatedly, his cries and screams getting louder as he could feel the pain course through his tiny body. Isaiah acted in sheer terror, his every instinct screaming to protect his child at all costs. With a courage born of desperation, he confronted the leopard, his hands shaking as he fought to free his son from the jaws of death. As the struggle raged on, Sabine joined the fray, her screams blending with Isaiah's as they fought tooth and nail to save their precious son. Isaiah managed to drive the leopard away with a final desperate effort, but the damage had already been done. In the aftermath of the attack, Courtney lay battered and broken, his tiny body bearing the scars of a battle fought and lost. With tears streaming down their faces, Isaiah and Sabine rushed their son to the hospital, praying for a miracle that would never come. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, Courtney succumbed to his injuries, his tiny heart beating its last as his parents looked on in agony. In the wake of his death, Kruger National Park was plunged into mourning, its vast expanse of wilderness overshadowed by the specter of loss and grief. After the brutal attack on Courtney, the rangers and park staff searched for the leopard, where the animal was considered a danger to humans and had to be killed immediately. The park rangers successfully located the leopard and shot it, ending the threat of it harming other people inside the park's premises. As the days turned into weeks, questions lingered like ghosts, haunting the minds of all who sought answers in the wake of Courtney's tragic demise. How had a leopard managed to breach the park's defenses? What measures could be taken to prevent such a tragedy from occurring again? Some speculated that human encroachment into the leopard's natural habitat had emboldened the animal. In contrast, others pointed to the inherent risks of living and working near wild predators. Beyond the tragedy of Courtney's death lies a story of a vibrant young life cut short by the merciless whims of nature. Courtney was not just a victim. He was a beloved son, a cherished family member, and a bright spark in all who knew him. His laughter and smile, once a source of boundless joy, now serve as bittersweet memories cherished by those who loved him most. In the heart of South Africa's renowned Kruger National Park, Roland Kohler, a Swiss tourist, went on a journey filled with anticipation and wonder. It was a crisp morning in November 2019 when Kohler, a devoted anthroposophic physician, and his wife set out on a safari adventure through the sprawling wilderness of the park. Roland Kohler, a man of intellect and curiosity, had dedicated his life to pursuing knowledge and healing. As an anthroposophic physician, he embraced a holistic approach to medicine, viewing each patient as a complex interplay of mind, body, and spirit. His compassionate nature endeared him to all who crossed his path, and his thirst for adventure drew him to the beauty of Kruger National Park. With the sun just beginning to rise above the horizon, the couple navigated the winding roads between the Mopani and Shingwedzi camps, their hearts brimming with excitement at the prospect of encountering the park's majestic wildlife. Little did they know, their adventure would soon take a tragic turn. As they rounded a bend in the road, a convoy of minibus taxis thundered past, their drivers seemingly oblivious to the posted speed limit of just 30 mph. Witnesses later recalled the taxis hurtling down the roadway with reckless abandon, leaving a trail of dust and uncertainty in their wake. Amid this chaotic scene, fate intervened most unexpectedly. A giraffe calf, innocent and unsuspecting, wandered onto the roadway, unaware of the impending danger. With a loud screech of tires, tragedy struck as one of the speeding taxis collided with the gentle creature, sending it tumbling onto the path of Kohler's safari vehicle. The impact was catastrophic. The massive 18-foot, 650-pound giraffe crashed down upon the roof of Kohler's camper with bone-crushing force, shattering the serenity of the morning and changing the course of their lives forever. The vehicle was severely damaged, and Kohler suffered from critical injuries while his wife was only mildly injured. A total of 4 people, including Kohler and his wife, were injured in the incident. Amidst the chaos, emergency services raced to the scene, their sirens wailing in a desperate chorus of urgency. Paramedics worked tirelessly to stabilize Kohler, his injuries grave and his future uncertain. With a head injury and a mandibular fracture, his life hung in the balance as he was airlifted to Nelspruit Mediclinic for urgent medical care. However, despite the efforts of medical professionals, Roland Kohler's battle for survival would soon come to a tragic end. Several days later, on November 13, 2019, Kohler succumbed to his injuries at Netcare Milpark Hospital in Johannesburg. His passing shocked the tight-knit community of travelers and adventurers who had crossed paths with him in the expanse of Kruger National Park. In the aftermath of this devastating incident, authorities launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding Kohler's death. Initially, a case of reckless driving was opened against the minibus driver. His actions were deemed a catalyst for the chain of events that led to the tragedy. However, with Kohler's death, the charge was elevated to culpable homicide. SANParks, custodians of Kruger National Park, issued a reminder to visitors, urging them to exercise caution and respect the wildlife that called the park home. With speeding fines enforced and surveillance cameras poised to monitor the roads, the message was clear. There are no second chances in the realm of nature. Within the reflections and reminders, questions lingered in the minds of those who bore witness to the tragedy. What if the taxis had adhered to the speed limits? What if the giraffe wasn't there in the first place? In the heart of Kruger National Park, amidst its sweeping vistas and wild, untamed beauty, 2 women embarked on a journey destined to end in tragedy. Surrounded by the raw power of nature and the unpredictable wilderness, their adventure, which began with excitement and the thrill of exploration, took a sudden, heart-wrenching turn, marking a sobering reminder of the park's formidable and often merciless reality. The first woman, a seasoned employee of SANParks, had dedicated her life to the protection and preservation of Kruger National Park. Born and raised in a small village on the outskirts of the park, her love for the wild was instilled in her from a young age. As a child, she would spend hours exploring the bushveld, her curiosity piqued by the myriad wonders hidden amidst the thorny underbrush. This deep connection to the land drew her to a career in conservation, where she could work tirelessly to ensure that future generations would inherit a world teeming with life. The second woman, a newcomer to SANParks and an employee, had dreamed of escaping the concrete jungle in favor of the wide-open spaces of the African bush. This longing for adventure led her to Kruger National Park, where she hoped to immerse herself in the beauty of nature and make a difference in the world. As fate would have it, the paths of these two women would converge on a fateful day in the Muiplas section of the park near Mopani Camp. Tasked with a routine mission to harvest Mopani worms, they set out into the wilderness with purpose and determination. Little did they know that their journey would take an unexpected turn, plunging them into a nightmare they would never awaken. It began with a rustle in the underbrush, a faint sound that sent shivers down their spines. Sensing danger, the women paused, their senses on high alert as they scanned the horizon for signs of trouble. And then, like a bolt from the blue, the elephants appeared, their massive forms looming prominently against the backdrop of the savanna. In an instant, chaos erupted as the elephants, agitated by the presence of intruders, charged forth with a primal fury. The women, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, scrambled for safety, their hearts pounding in their chests like the beat of distant thunder. But for one of them, escape was not to be. With a swift and brutal motion, the elephant's tusk pierced her flesh, carving a path of destruction from her lower back to her chest. The air filled with the sounds of her agony as she fell to the ground, her lifeblood staining the earth beneath her. Beside her, the other woman fought for her life, her body battered and broken by the relentless assault of nature's fury. Guided by armed rangers through the dense, untamed bush of Kruger National Park, a team of paramedics raced against time, navigating the rugged terrain desperately to reach the accident scene. Despite their relentless efforts and the urgency of their mission, they arrived too late for one of the women. She lay motionless on the ground, her life tragically cut short in an instant by powerful forces beyond anyone's control. The somber atmosphere was a stark reminder of nature's unforgiving strength and the fragile line between life and death in the wilderness. How might the outcome have changed if the women had chosen a different route through the park? Could earlier or more effective emergency responses have prevented the tragic end? Were there any overlooked warning signs that could have alerted them to the impending danger? How did their preparations, or lack thereof, impact their fate in the unpredictable wilderness of Kruger National Park? Reflecting on these questions might not only shed light on the circumstances that led to this heartbreak, but also serve as crucial lessons for future adventurers. Understanding these aspects can help emphasize the importance of preparedness, awareness, and swift action in the face of nature's unforeseeable challenges.
Monday, September 14, 2015, a group of 7 hikers set out to explore Keyhole Canyon in Zion National Park, which by the usual estimates should take anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. The group consisted of adults between 40 and 50 years of age, most of whom were California residents. According to reports, their names were Mark McKenzie, Linda Arthur, her husband Steve, Gary Favela, Muku Reynolds, Robin Broom, and Don Teichner. Some of them had taken a canyoneering skills course prior to the hike, as they were newbies to the hobby. Others knew each other through a hiking club in Valencia, California. Together, they weren't the best team, but they had enough experience to get them through the hike on any typical day. However, that seemingly ordinary day in September held something else in stock for the hikers. Just 2 hours past noon, authorities were forced to shut down all the canyons in the vicinity following an unforeseen storm that triggered flash floods. Despite park rangers routinely cautioning hikers about the dangers of floods during monsoon season, this group had defiantly chosen to venture into the canyon. Although the reason behind their decision remains unclear, it might have stemmed from the fact that the Keyhole Canyon permits were coveted by many, as only 80 visitors are allowed to visit it per day. When the storm hit, the hikers were unaware of the flash flooding it had caused. This is because Keystone Canyon is predominantly desert terrain, and there was no means of reaching them in time to warn them ahead. Unfortunately, they ended up getting caught in an unexpected deluge of floodwaters while they were descending the canyon. It likely rushed over their heads in moments and carried them miles downstream to their watery demise. Perhaps the group's dire situation might never have been known if not for 3 other hikers who had crossed paths with them earlier during their own hike. At this chance encounter, they helped the group capture a photograph of themselves, that would tragically mark the final image they would ever share. The 3 hikers, who had narrowly escaped being met by the flash floods, alerted the park rangers about the 7 hikers when they arrived back at base. With this crucial information at hand, the rangers moved to locate the hikers' vehicles to confirm if they were able to make it back. However, when the rangers arrived at their location, their owners were nowhere in sight. Typically, a search and rescue operation would have been mobilized immediately to locate the missing hikers. However, initiating one at the time was deemed too dangerous due to the storm. Hours later, search and rescue teams, aided by specially trained dogs, combed through several miles of the area. They searched for any sign of the hikers, be it their remains or any indications that one of them had managed to survive the ordeal. The former ended up being the case. Across 1 week, the bodies of each of the 7 hikers popped up in different locations within the canyon, confirming that the flash flood had indeed claimed their lives. The news devastated their families as well as local hiking communities, which some of them belonged to. Several months later, a memorial bench was erected at Topanga State Park to honor the memory of the hikers who lost their lives in the tragic incident. In August 2022, Jital Agnihotri decided to visit Zion National Park with 2 of her friends for a hiking trip in the Narrows. She loves spending her time outdoors, but could not do it frequently due to her hectic life as a promising young PhD researcher at the University of Arizona Department of Hydrology and Atmospheric Sciences. All things considered, she saw the hiking trip as a time to relax from the stress of academia before starting the fall semester at the University of Arizona. However, just as Jital and her friends were gearing up to start their hike, Zion Park officials issued several flash flood warnings. Given that hiking through the Narrows involved wading through the virgin riverbed at certain points, the prospect of being caught in the river during a flash flood was potentially life-threatening. Regardless, Jital decided to go on the hike as planned. Meanwhile, her friends chose the wiser option of staying back, and they all planned to meet up at the visitor center's parking lot later in the evening. During the hike, the flash flood struck suddenly, turning the dry washes and smooth rock surfaces of the Narrows into a dangerous river of fast-moving water and debris in just minutes. Sadly, Jital, who reportedly couldn't swim, was swept away by the flood, along with a group of other hikers. Shortly after the flash flood, park rangers were informed about hikers being swept away. They promptly organized a rescue team to assist them. One injured hiker was discovered downstream, several hundred yards away on the Virgin River, and was immediately transported to the hospital. Several other hikers found themselves stranded on elevated ground surrounded by water, but were safely escorted to dry land once the water levels went back. The rangers then interviewed the park visitors, asking if anyone was missing from their group. When no one offered information about a missing person, they believed everyone had been located. However, hours later, Jital was reported missing, likely by her friends, when she failed to appear. This triggered an immediate search effort involving a team of swiftwater-trained rescuers, search dogs, and over 170 emergency responders. On the first day of the search, Jital remained unaccounted for. As the search efforts continued, Jital's family, who had traveled to assist in the search, anxiously awaited any updates regarding her whereabouts. Her brother even spoke with news outlets, expressing his shock at the suddenness of the flash floods and lamenting the family's anguish over not knowing what Jital was experiencing. On that same day, video footage circulated by a news outlet showed at least 2 individuals desperately clinging to broken-off parts of fallen trees as the flash flood carried them away. One of the individuals looked like Jital, although the video could not 100% confirm this. When Jital's brother was interviewed about it, he expressed deep concern that the chilling footage may have captured his sister's final moments. The search continued into the second day, with rescue officers carefully going through the areas where Jital might have been swept away by the flood. They focused their efforts on investigating the fast-flowing and deep sections of the river, as well as areas with dense vegetation and log jams. However, it wasn't until the fourth day of the search that Jital was finally discovered. She was found 6 miles south of the Narrows, already deceased, a grim reality later confirmed by a medical examiner. In the wake of Jital's passing, an outpouring of tributes flooded in to honor her memory. Her university described her as gracious, humble, and dedicated, while a close friend fondly remembered her as the most wonderful person and praised her kindness towards everyone. A funeral service was later held for Jital on Thursday, August 25, 2022, at Metcalf Mortuary in St. George, Utah.
Two 15-year-old girls from Finland, Mila Imeli Björklund and Anja Tuulikimäki, decided to go camping with their 18-year-old boyfriends, Seppo Antero Boisman and Niels Wilhelm Gustafsson, sometime in June 1960. They picked a popular spot by Lake Bodom, a peaceful lake about 22 kilometers west of Helsinki, the capital city. This was a place known for much fun, and that was just what the group planned for. The group was excited about a fun camping trip, planning to spend their time in a single tent, right by the beautiful lake. In the early hours of June 5, 1960, the four teenagers were camping peacefully and enjoying themselves on the shores of Lake Bodom. Their day had started well, with everyone enjoying nature and the calm lake, until suddenly, things took a sad turn later that night. The unexpected happened just between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. While they were still in their tent, Björklund, Mäki and Boisman were attacked, which resulted in serious injuries for the trio from being stabbed and beaten. Gustafsson, the only one who survived, was left with serious injuries, including a concussion, a broken jaw, and several fractures on the face. Around 6 a.m., a group of boys who were out to get a sight of the different birds that flew around the lake came across the scene. They saw the collapsed tent on the lakeshore, but didn't think much of it, and so continued on their way. They later mentioned seeing a blonde man walking away from the area. It wasn't until 11 a.m. that Risto Siren, a local carpenter, found the bodies. He quickly called the police, who arrived around noon. By then, the teenagers had been dead for over 6 hours. Inside the tent, they found the bodies of Mäki and Boisman. Björklund, Gustafsson's girlfriend, was discovered on top of the tent, partly undressed and lying beside Gustafsson. She had been badly injured, with signs of being stabbed even after her death. It looked like the attacker didn't need to enter the tent. The attacker had struck the teenagers from outside. The victims were stabbed with a knife, but there were also signs of another blunt object that was used on them, though it wasn't exactly clear what it was. Adding to the mystery, some strange items were also missing. The keys to the teenagers' motorcycles were gone, but the bikes were left behind. Gustafsson's shoes were missing too, but they were later found about half a mile away, along with some of his clothes. Gustafsson was the only one who survived the attack. When police questioned him, he could only describe a shadowy figure dressed in black with glowing red eyes that attacked them brutally. The newspapers criticized the police for mishandling the case. They didn't properly record their findings or secure the crime scene, which led to the area being contaminated. After the police left, curious onlookers and careless campers made a mess of the scene. The police brought in soldiers to search for the missing items, but this only made things worse, and most of the items were never recovered. The first person suspected of the murders was Carl Valdemar Gillström, known locally as Kioskman, because he ran a nearby shop. Another suspect, Hans Assmann, was of interest for many years. At the time, it was a rumor that he was a former KGB spy living near Lake Bodom. And who wouldn't be careful with spies? However, it wasn't until 44 years after the incident that the police finally arrested someone. The Lake Bodom case saw a major breakthrough sometime in March 2004. After almost 50 years, new DNA evidence led prosecutors to a suspect they believed had a motive. Technological advances in forensic science that weren't available in 1960 helped to support this new lead. The suspect turned out to be Gustafsson, the only survivor of the murders, who was then arrested and brought to trial. The police had long suspected Gustafsson and claimed they had evidence to back up their claim. They said that Gustafsson's shoes, which were found covered in the victim's blood and not his own, were worn by the killer during the attack. During the trial, the prosecution painted a story where Gustafsson, after getting drunk and being kicked out of the tent, fought with Boisman. They claimed Boisman won the fight, leaving Gustafsson with a broken jaw and facial bones. Angered, Gustafsson allegedly returned to the tent in a rage, killing his girlfriend and friends, then wounded himself and tampered with the crime scene to cover his tracks. Gustafsson's defense team argued against the prosecution's story, suggesting that if Gustafsson and Boisman had really fought, Gustafsson would have been too injured to commit the murders or to walk half a mile to hide his shoes. In October 2005, the court agreed with the defense and found Gustafsson not guilty of all charges. He was acquitted and later received €44,900 from the state of Finland for the mental distress caused by the lengthy legal process. Despite this, the case remains a mystery. No new suspects have emerged, and no additional evidence has been found, leaving the Lake Bottom murders as Finland's most notorious and unresolved camping crime. Trevor Holminski, a 20-year-old who had a deep love for the outdoors, was so passionate about nature. His documentary, A Blue Crow, showcased his wilderness survival skills. Just as he was about to join the Marines, Trevor wanted an adventure for the final time, so he planned a camping trip with his friend, Sheldon Stewart, in August 2015. They both went to Bucks Lake in Northern California, excited for days of hiking and exploring. Trevor's mother, Allison, remembered how happy he was about the trip, completely ignorant of the tragedy that was about to happen. Trevor and Sheldon set up camp at Bucks Lake and enjoyed the beautiful views the place offered. However, as night came, their behavior became totally strange after taking LSD and marijuana. The events of that night would go on to have a devastating effect, leading to a sad outcome that shocked the community. As the night went on, Trevor and Sheldon's attitude became increasingly crazy. They went around the campsite with their senses dulled by the drugs they had taken. The exact details of what happened that night are not exactly clear, but it's clear there was some kind of fight. Sheldon later claimed that Trevor had attacked him, but the evidence suggested something much more complicated. In the early morning of August 22, 2015, firefighters who were attending to a bushfire at Bucks Lake discovered something scary. While trying to calm the fire, they found Sheldon stabbed with multiple wounds on his neck. Nearby, a burned body was found in the campfire pit, with smoke still rising from the remains. The investigation had just started, but it was evident that something tragic and sinister had occurred at Bucks Lake. As detectives started questioning Sheldon, he told them a scary story about what had happened the night before. However, as they continued to investigate, they found a lot of inconsistencies in his story, leading them to uncover the truth. As the investigation progressed, detectives realized that the burned body in the campfire pit was actually Trevor's. The autopsy revealed he had been stabbed multiple times before being set on fire. With this new evidence, Sheldon's story began to appear stupid, and he soon became the main suspect in Trevor's murder. Detectives continued questioning Sheldon, but his alibi made no sense. He had said Trevor attacked him, but the evidence told a different story. The wounds on Sheldon's neck looked like they were self-inflicted, and the knife used to kill Trevor was later found buried near the campsite, together with Trevor's wallet and ID. As the evidence continued to increase, Sheldon's story began to change. With the case against him growing stronger, Sheldon was charged with Trevor's murder. During the trial, Sheldon claimed that Trevor had made unwanted romantic advances, which he rejected, and that led to a serious fight. The prosecution, however, wasn't going to have any of Sheldon's story, arguing that his story was not consistent and hard to believe. The prosecutor mentioned that Stewart's lawyers argued he was under the influence of LSD and had only acted in self-defense. However, the prosecutor believed the evidence showed otherwise. Eventually, Sheldon confessed that he had caused Trevor's demise because Trevor had asked to be out of his misery. What that meant isn't exactly clear. The exact details of that night remain unclear, but Sheldon was found guilty of first-degree murder and arson. The jury verdict was that Sheldon was guilty, and he was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison for his crimes.
On June 14, 1969, the Martin family, made up of William, his wife, and their two boys, Dennis and his older brother, set out for a camping trip in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. They were looking to escape the city's hustle and find some peace in nature. They pitched their tents in Spence Field, surrounded by lush greenery, and their voices filled the tranquil surroundings with laughter and conversation. As the afternoon crept in, Dennis and his older brother found themselves engrossed in a game of hide-and-seek with two other boys from the camp. It all started innocently enough. Little did they know, this simple game was about to take a terrifying turn. Around 4:30 p.m., Dennis and his brother teamed up with the two other boys for some fun. William Martin watched as the kids huddled together, plotting a prank to surprise the adults. With a mischievous grin, they disappeared into the forest, Dennis's bright red shirt contrasting against the green backdrop. When the older boys reappeared, bursting into laughter, Dennis was conspicuously absent. Concern etched across his face, William began calling out for Dennis but received no response. Meanwhile, about 7 miles away, Harold Key and his family were taking a leisurely hike near Sea Branch, southwest of Cades Cove. Their peaceful outing took a chilling turn when a scream pierced the quiet forest. Startled, they scanned the surroundings, their hearts racing with unease as they glimpsed a shadowy figure darting among the trees. During that time, the Martin family and the other family that was with them started looking for Dennis. As the hours slipped by and darkness descended upon Spence Field, the search efforts intensified, drawing the attention of park rangers and concerned volunteers alike. With a heavy heart, William Martin reported his son's disappearance to park officials at Cades Cove around 8:30 p.m. His voice trembled with fear as he pleaded for assistance in finding his missing child. As the evening progressed, a thunderstorm swept through the mountains and pounded the campsite with rain and wind. Despite the worsening weather conditions, search operations continued tirelessly into the night, with the family and searchers frantically scanning the area for the missing boy. On June 15, 1969, as the first light of dawn broke, the group of searchers gathered at Boat Mountain Road to discuss the search plans for the day. Despite their exhaustion, they were ready to face another day of relentless searching. By 5 a.m., they had spread out across the rugged terrain as they combed every inch of the wilderness, in hopes of finding any clue that could lead them to Dennis. As the hours passed, the search party grew to over 240 individuals. Among them were local Boy Scouts, park rangers in training, and concerned volunteers, all united in their mission to bring Dennis home. In the days that followed, hope began to fade as Dennis remained missing, leaving his fate uncertain and giving rise to speculation. False leads and fleeting sightings only added to the distress felt by his family and the community. It was during this time that various theories and speculations surrounding his disappearance began to surface. 3 main theories emerged regarding Dennis's disappearance. The first, considered most probable by park officials, suggested that Dennis became lost and was unable to survive in the wilderness. The second theory proposed that Dennis may have been attacked by a bear or, less likely, a wild pig, and carried off. The third theory, supported by Dennis's father, suggested that someone may have abducted him from the park. On the day Dennis went missing, tourist Harold Key and his family reported hearing a scream and seeing a rough-looking man running away. However, park rangers and the FBI were unable to find sufficient evidence to link this sighting with Dennis's disappearance. Amid speculations, the search for Dennis continued. On the 3rd of July, the search party encountered a troubling scent of decay along the West Prong, prompting concern among members. Despite thorough investigation, the source of the odor remained unidentified, adding to the complexities of the search. Despite extensive efforts and a $5,000 reward from the family for any information about Dennis, the search did not yield any new leads. Consequently, park officials decided to end the search for Dennis Martin on September 11th. In 1985, a potential breakthrough emerged when a ginseng hunter claimed to have discovered a child's skeletal remains 3 miles downhill from Dennis's last known location. Despite extensive search efforts, searchers were unable to locate the reported remains. The mystery surrounding Dennis Martin's disappearance remains unsolved, despite the significant effort invested in finding him.
36-year-old Lisa Schilling, her 12-year-old daughter, Lily Arguello, and a few other family members arrived at Buckhorn Canyon for a relaxing holiday on Wednesday, July 13, 2022. They were returning to their favorite camping spot, a place they loved as a retreat from city life, after the area had been affected by the Cameron Peak fire 2 years earlier. Annette Vasquez, Lisa's sister-in-law and Lily's aunt described Buckhorn Canyon as a special place full of memories. She said that the family had spent many summers there, introducing their spouses and raising their children away from the distractions of modern life. For them, the canyon wasn't just a campsite, it was a wonderful part of their family history. Lisa was a fourth-grade teacher at Dean Elementary who had plans to transfer to Bear Creek Elementary. Her daughter Lily, who was about to enter the 8th grade, was eagerly waiting for her 13th birthday on July 27th. On Friday, July 15th, during their camping trip, it began to rain, causing the nearby creek to rise a few inches. Although the rain soon stopped, it had already set the stage for a sad turn of events. Vasquez recounted a chilling moment when a loud rumbling sound echoed through the campsite. Looking up the creek, they saw a terrifying sight. A huge wall of trees, rocks, mud, and water rushed towards them with great force. In a flash, the trailer where Lisa, Lily, and their 2 dogs were staying was caught in the flood. The powerful flow of water swept the trailer away, and within moments, it was overwhelmed. Sadly, Lisa, Lily, and their pets drowned as the flood filled the trailer, which was later confirmed to be the cause of their deaths. Around 5 p.m., the Larimer County Sheriff's Office began receiving reports of flooding in the area. By 7:30 p.m., rescuers found Lisa and her daughter Lily just over half a mile from their campsite on Calcite Court. Sadly, their deaths were ruled accidental. The sad event left their family devastated, adding to the deep grief they were already experiencing from their recent losses. Her family and friends have come together to support Lisa's husband during this hard time, even setting up an online fundraiser to help with expenses. As of July 19th, 2022, the GoFundMe page had raised nearly $14,000 out of its $25,000 goal.
In May 1996, a young couple's peaceful hiking trip in Virginia's Shenandoah National Park turned into a nightmare, ending in a tragedy that would haunt the area for decades. Julie Williams, 24, and her partner Laura Lolly Winans, 26, were experienced nature enthusiasts who had come to the park for a celebratory retreat. Julie was preparing to begin a new job at Lake Champlain in Vermont, set to start on June 1st. Instead, that day marked the end of a search that uncovered their shocking fate. Julie and Lolly entered Shenandoah on May 19, 1996, eager to explore the park's beauty. Accompanied by their golden retriever, Taj, the couple began on the White Oak Canyon Trail, though rain soon forced them to alter their route. They registered for additional permits and were last seen on May 24th by a park ranger who had given them a ride. Their final campsite lay near a secluded area by a stream just off the Appalachian Trail and a short distance from the bustling Skyland Lodge. For many, camping in such proximity to a populated area might have seemed reassuring, but Julie and Lolly, seasoned outdoor adventurers, were cautious and kept a respectful distance from public trails and fire roads. Both women had a deep love for the wilderness where they felt at home. Lolly, studying to become a wilderness guide, had a passion for helping others connect with nature, and Julie, aspiring to be a geologist, shared that passion. They had met through a nonprofit that organized outdoor expeditions for women, bonding over their love of adventure and the peace they found in natural settings. Their lives were filled with a sense of purpose, and their time in Shenandoah was meant to be a celebration of both their personal and professional achievements. On May 31st, Julie's father, Thomas Williams, grew concerned when his daughter hadn't made contact about her upcoming job. He reported her missing, triggering a search by park rangers. They soon located Julie and Lolly's car near Skyland Lodge, close to where they were last seen. Taj, their dog, was found wandering alone nearby, a harrowing sign that suggested something had gone terribly wrong. On June 1st, the day Julie was supposed to start her new job, the search team found their campsite and with it a gruesome scene. Julie and Lolly's bodies were discovered close together, bound and gagged. It was obvious that the 2 women had suffered terribly in their last hours. The brutality of the crime stunned even seasoned investigators. The isolated campsite and lack of significant evidence left little to go on, making it immediately clear that this was going to be a challenging investigation. The National Park Service and FBI quickly joined forces, launching a wide-reaching investigation. They traced the women's last days using their camera, which revealed images capturing the joy of their adventure until May 24th. the last day they were seen. Investigators meticulously processed the crime scene and conducted a vast search for leads. The investigation eventually led them to a man named Daryl David Rice, who had previously exhibited aggressive tendencies toward women. Rice's behavior in the park and comments about Julie and Lolly's romantic orientation seemed incriminating. Videotapes placed him in Shenandoah on May 25th, and investigators found hand and leg restraints in his vehicle. Prosecutors felt they had enough circumstantial evidence to pursue charges against him. However, the case fell apart in 2003 when DNA evidence from the crime scene didn't match Rice or either of the victims. With this discovery, the charges against him were dismissed, leaving the case unresolved. The families of Julie and Lolly, along with their close-knit communities, were devastated, left to grapple with a loss compounded by the uncertainties surrounding the case. For nearly 3 decades, the double homicide remained unsolved. But in 2024, advancements in DNA technology led to a breakthrough. New testing identified Walter Leo Jackson as the perpetrator. Jackson, who had died in prison in 2018, was a convicted serial molester with a history of brutal attacks, a fact that added another tragic layer to the story. Although the discovery brought a measure of closure, it was a bittersweet revelation for the families who had waited so long for justice. In April 2002, Caroline Stuttle, a bright and compassionate 19-year-old from York, England, was approaching the end of her gap-year journey through Australia. Traveling with her friend Sarah Holliday, Caroline had already explored some of Australia's famous landmarks and had arrived in the small town of Bundaberg, Queensland, one of their last destinations before going back home to their families. But Caroline would never get to see her family again. Like thousands of young travelers each year, Caroline had saved eagerly, working at a Pizza Hut and making plans for an unforgettable trip before starting her studies in criminal psychology. She was looking forward to the next chapter of her life and to making an impact by helping others. In April 2002, Caroline's trip was coming to an end. On the night of April 10th, Caroline stepped out alone, heading toward a payphone to speak with her boyfriend back in England. As she was returning to her caravan, her path crossed that of 32-year-old Ian Previte, a local drifter and substance addict. Struggling with his addiction and intoxicated on a mixture of illicit substances, Previte's night took a darker turn as he sought to steal whatever he could to fund his habit. Caroline was nearly back to her accommodation when Previte approached her. In his attempt to grab her handbag, Previte attacked her, and a desperate struggle ensued. Caroline clung to her bag, resisting her attacker's grip, but Previte's determination turned aggressive. As they fought, he pushed Caroline over the bridge railing and into the darkness below. She fell more than 32 feet to the ground below, a drop that left her fatally injured. When police arrived, her body lay beneath the bridge, her belongings stolen for the trivial amount of $1.80, a meaningless sum in exchange for a precious life. News of Caroline's killing quickly spread, sending shockwaves through her family and the small community in York. For them, the devastating loss was incomprehensible. The journey she had taken with such hope had ended in tragedy. But despite media coverage and police efforts, leads in the case grew cold, and Previte went unconnected to the crime. Months later, a breakthrough came when Previte, serving time for an unrelated offense, reportedly confessed to Caroline's killing. Investigators found that the confession was more than a rumor when they discovered the words, "I throw the girl of the bridge, I am sorry," scrawled on a bench near the hostel where Previte had stayed. The shocking admission gave authorities the lead they needed to finally bring charges against him. In 2004, Previte stood trial for Caroline's killing. The evidence left little doubt, and the jury's verdict was clear. Justice Peter Dutney handed down a life sentence, condemning Previte's actions and the brutal impact they had on an innocent young life. Caroline's family watched as the verdict was delivered, knowing that no sentence would fully heal their wounds, but feeling some relief that justice had been served. Caroline's legacy endures not only in the memories of her family and friends, but also through Caroline's Rainbow Foundation, a charity her family established in her memory. The foundation is devoted to educating young travelers on safety precautions and helping them prepare for international journeys with greater awareness. Her brother, Richard Stuttle, has carried forward the foundation's work with deep commitment, honoring his sister's adventurous spirit and kind nature. For Richard and the rest of Caroline's family, Previte's release from prison in 2020 marked a painful chapter, reopening the deep wounds her loss had inflicted. Richard remarked on the toll her death continues to take, reflecting that while Previte's life sentence had ended, theirs would last forever. The Rocky Mountains, known for their breathtaking landscapes and rugged terrain, attract countless adventurers each year. Hikers flock to the trails to experience the beauty and serenity of Colorado's wilderness. However, the mountain's allure comes with inherent risks, and not all who venture into these wilds return. One of the most enduring mysteries of the Rockies is the disappearance of James Pruitt, a 70-year-old man from Tennessee. James Pruitt, a seasoned hiker with a passion for photography, arrived at Rocky Mountain National Park on February 28, 2019. He was an experienced outdoorsman, familiar with the challenges and beauty of the wilderness. That day, he set off for what he intended to be a day hike. He parked his car in the Glacier Gorge parking lot, grabbed his Nikon Coolpix P900 camera and a reddish-orange beanie, and began his trek around 10 a.m. The weather was typical for late winter, with cold temperatures and the ever-present possibility of snow. For 3 days, Pruitt remained silent, causing his family's concern to grow. On March 2nd, rangers found his vehicle still parked at the Glacier Gorge trailhead, indicating he had yet to return as planned. When they contacted his family, their worst fears were confirmed. Pruitt had set out for a day hike and had not been seen or heard from since. The National Park Service swiftly initiated an extensive search and rescue operation. By then, over 2 feet of snow had fallen in the Glacier Gorge area, complicating the search efforts. The fresh snow had likely covered any tracks or clues that could lead to Pruitt's whereabouts. Time was of the essence, but the severe weather and treacherous conditions made the search increasingly tricky. The operation mobilized ground crews, helicopters, and search dogs, all meticulously scouring the rugged terrain around Glacier Gorge. The search teams faced significant challenges, from navigating deep snow and icy paths to battling the biting cold. Despite their exhaustive efforts, no sign of James Pruitt was uncovered. The vast, harsh landscape seemed to swallow any trace of him, leaving behind only questions and heartache for his family. As days turned into weeks, the National Park Service was forced to adjust the search strategy. The active search was scaled back to a continuous limited mode, meaning rangers would conduct periodic checks of the area and follow up on any potential new leads. The investigation into Pruitt's disappearance remained open, but the resources and intensity of the initial search could no longer be sustained indefinitely. The mystery of James Pruitt's disappearance weighed heavily on his family and the search teams. Theories and speculations arose, but without concrete evidence, they remained just that, speculations. Given Pruitt's age and the challenging conditions in Glacier Gorge, it was presumed that he may have encountered an accident or a medical emergency while hiking alone. The demanding landscape and unpredictable climate in Rocky Mountain National Park create formidable survival challenges, even for seasoned hikers like Pruitt. As the years passed, the active search operations were halted, but the hope of finding James Pruitt never entirely disappeared. Both his family and the National Park Service continued to hold on to the possibility that new evidence or information might come to light.
July 2024, Carlos Luna, a 43-year-old from Ejea de los Caballeros, near Zaragoza, Spain, embarked on a journey to South Africa's Pilanesberg National Park. Joined by his fiancée and 2 of her female friends who lived in Johannesburg, Carlos sought the thrill of close encounters with nature. This experience tragically ended in a terrifying disaster. On Sunday, July 7th, 2024, Carlos Luna, his fiancée and their friends entered Pilanesberg National Park through the Bagasia Gate. Pilanesberg is a famous sanctuary with some of nature's most magnificent creatures in an ancient volcanic crater. The park is a natural habitat for Africa's so-called Big Five: elephant, buffalo, lion, leopard, and rhino. The group was in high spirits. They had cameras, so they took pictures of the wildlife and the landscape as they drove through the park. Soon after they entered the park, though, they spotted something that encouraged 43-year-old Carlos Luna to make a reckless decision. The group spotted a breeding herd of elephants by a lake, 3 adults and 3 calves. It was an awe-inspiring sight, enough that Carlos left their vehicle's safety, wanting to capture some up-close pictures of the herd. By doing so, he actively disregarded the park's guidelines, which state that tourists must remain in their vehicles to ensure their safety and that of wildlife. But not everyone supported the man's decision. His fiancée and her 2 friends tried to get Carlos back to safety. They pleaded with him, asking him over and over again to abandon his plan. But Carlos's decision was final. With his camera in his hands, the man approached the towering animals. He ventured closer and closer, possibly hoping to take the picture of a lifetime. The herd was impressive. It consisted of a massive 3.5-ton female elephant, the leader of the group, 2 adult male elephants, and 3 calves. The animals were calm initially, probably unaware of the approaching human. However, that changed almost instantly as soon as the matriarch, the female elephant who led the group, sensed Carlos approaching. She was spooked. Elephants are fiercely protective of their young, and any perceived threat can provoke a violent response. The matriarch charged at Carlos, driven by instinct to protect her family. Carlos was overcome by panic. The 2 other adult males joined the charge. It was a terrifying sight, made even worse by the animal's sheer size. Carlos knew he was in grave danger. As such, he turned and started to run, his camera still in his hands. He had to make it back to the vehicle. Meanwhile, his fiancée and her friends watched in horror. They could do nothing but scream as the angry elephants closed in. It all happened in a flash. The elephants overtook Carlos, knocking him down and trampling him into the earth. 30 seconds. That's all it took for 43-year-old Carlos Luna to find his gruesome end. The attack left behind a horrifying sight. Blood-soaked clothing, and the remnants of Carlos Luna's body, crushed beyond recognition. After the attack, the herd left peacefully, and their perceived threat disappeared. Park officials were alerted by the frantic witnesses. They rushed to the site, but they knew nothing could be gone. Carlos's fiancée and friends were left in a state of pure shock, requiring immediate counseling to cope with the trauma. A female elephant can stand over 11 feet tall, weigh up to 4 tons, and run up to 25 miles per hour. Bull elephants are even more prominent, reaching up to 13 feet in height and weighing as much as 6 tons. Carlos Luna never stood a chance against the herd. Following the incident, the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board conveyed their sincere condolences to Carlos's family and underlined the significance of following safety procedures. Peter Nell, the acting chief conservation officer, emphasized that these rules are in place to safeguard both visitors and animals, and that this occurrence should serve as a clear reminder of the possible consequences of disobeying them. July 27, 2019, Ivan Ivanov, an esteemed agricultural expert, embarked on a business trip to Cape Town. After days of diligent work, Ivan spent that Saturday exploring Cape Town's breathtaking natural landscapes. Eager to experience the beauty of South Africa, he set out on a hike, unaware of the looming danger. Ivan hoped to make the most of his trip, but tragically, he never returned to safety. The simple hike that was meant to be a peaceful escape turned into a haunting nightmare, forever marking his final journey. At 44 years old, Ivan was a family man. His wife and kids, however, did not accompany him on his hike. On that fateful morning, Ivan set off alone, looking forward to enjoying the natural beauty of the East Fort hiking trail, Chapman's Peak Drive. The route is generally considered challenging, but famous for hiking, running, and walking. Those who want solitude can also enjoy the hike during the quieter times of the day. It is one of the most scenic hikes around Cape Town, so it's no surprise Ivan had chosen it as his destination for the day. Ivan carried some personal items: a BlackBerry cell phone, cash, a green cloak, a first aid kit, and some food, such as biltong and prunes. He also had a bottle of water and other small belongings. Unbeknownst to him, those few insignificant items would seal his fate. Ivan wasn't aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows of the trail. Earlier that day, just moments before Ivan started his hike, a couple walking their dog on the trail saw something that made them hide. They saw 3 armed men who looked like trouble. It is possible that hiding saved the couple's life, but Ivan Ivanov wasn't so lucky. Sinaye Mposelwa, Matthew Gio, and Franklin Isaacs were waiting in the shadows of the trail. The trio had a simple plan. They decided to ambush any hiker who came that way and rob them of their possessions. The 3 men had knives, which they were to use on any victim who resisted the robbery. And then, they found their perfect victim. Ivan Ivanov was enjoying his hike, still close to the parking lot. He was walking peacefully, even though his family had asked him to reconsider his decision to hike in South Africa, believing it was a dangerous place, especially for a tourist. But Ivan was a self-confident man. He wanted to spend the weekend hiking, especially since he liked Cape Town nature very much. As Ivan hiked, he walked past the bushes where Sinaye Mposelwa, Matthew Gio, and Franklin Isaacs hid. The men left their hiding spot and demanded Ivan give them his belongings. When Ivan refused, they struck. Their attack was brutal. Ivan was stabbed mercilessly 11 times in his back and chest. The 3 men then ran away, covered in Ivan's blood. The 3 men stole his belongings and fled the scene. The couple walking their dog and witnessing the attacker's erratic behavior were the first to raise the alarm. Authorities quickly arrived at the scene, but nothing could be done for Ivan Ivanov, who succumbed to his multiple penetrating wounds. Soon after, 2 men found Sinai Mposelwa, one of the attackers, covered in blood. The men handed Mposelwa to the police. Mposelwa was linked to the crime when the blood on his clothes was found to be Ivan's. Even more, the man had some of Ivan's belongings on him. Sinai Mposelwa admitted his role in the murder, although he refused to testify against his accomplices, citing threats from a prison gang. In August 2023, Mposelwa was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the murder and an additional 10 years for the aggravated robbery. The court showed leniency because of Mposelwa's difficult personal circumstances and because the man showed remorse. Matthew Gio and Franklin Isaacs, the other 2 attackers, have pleaded not guilty. The trial continues as Cape Town locals ask for increased measures to protect tourists and local. October 23, 2015, and John and Lynette Rogers, a newlywed couple from Hollywood, Northern Ireland, were on honeymoon in South Africa. The newlyweds were beyond happy. At that point, they had been together for 6 beautiful years, and their honeymoon was supposed to be something they would never forget. 6 days after their wedding, John and Lynette Rogers found their ends together, in death as they were in life. Both John and Lynette were adventurers. John was a part-time reservist corporal in the Territorial Army who worked for an office supply company in Belfast. Lynette was a physiotherapist who enjoyed new experiences. As such, she had even planned to go cage diving with sharks on her honeymoon, but she never got to do it. That Saturday, the couple had been exploring Robberg Beach, a stretch renowned for its beauty and dangerous waters. Robberg Beach, part of the Robberg Nature Reserve, offers breathtaking views and opportunities to see seals, dolphins, and even whales during migration season. However, the area is also known for its strong currents and unpredictable waves, making it a place where caution is always advised. John and Lynette were strong swimmers, so getting in the water was not unusual. As such, they ventured into the sea, unaware of the tricky conditions. The surf was rough, and powerful rip currents swirled beneath the surface, a hidden danger to even the strongest swimmers. But something went wrong that afternoon. Soon enough, at about 5:30 p.m. on October 23, 2015, the couple found themselves struggling against the relentless force of the ocean. Even more, there was nobody else on the beach. The couple fought for their lives, but they were no match to the force of the waves. They lost. By the time a local man discovered John's body in the shallow surf around 6 p.m., it was too late. The National Sea Rescue Institute, NSRI, responded swiftly, but their efforts to revive him were in vain. 2 women found Lynette's body about 600 feet away along the same beach. Doctors attempted frantically to perform CPR, but it was too late. Lynette and John Rogers were both pronounced dead at the scene, merely 6 days after their wedding. The news of their untimely deaths left their friends and family in a state of disbelief, struggling to comprehend how such a beautiful occasion had turned into an unthinkable, beyond cruel tragedy. If anything, Lynette and John's family were somewhat comforted by the fact that Lynette and John's bodies had been found and returned to them. Strong rip currents and rough sea conditions were likely the cause of the drowning, according to the NSRI. No foul play is suspected. The police have filed an inquest docket to investigate the specifics of the couple's tragic demise and ensure that every detail of the incident is thoroughly examined.
Jay Tragan, a 68-year-old resident of Columbia Falls, Montana, was a man deeply connected to the natural world. Living in the shadow of Glacier National Park, he spent countless hours exploring its rugged beauty, finding solace and adventure in its vast wilderness. On July 22, 2020, Tragan set out for another hike, a solo journey that he had undertaken many times before. His destination was the Kintla Lake Trailhead in the park's remote northwest corner, a spot known for its serene beauty and challenging terrain. Tragan's vehicle was discovered parked at the trailhead, a familiar sight for park rangers and fellow hikers who knew him by his regular visits. He was a seasoned hiker, well prepared for the challenges that Glacier National Park presented. However, when he failed to return by July 25th, concern proliferated. The National Park Service was notified, and a search and rescue operation was immediately initiated. The initial search efforts were extensive and well coordinated. Ground crews, helicopters, and search dogs were deployed to comb the harsh terrain surrounding Kintla Lake. The area, known for its dense forests, steep slopes, and unpredictable weather, posed significant challenges for the search teams. Despite their best efforts, there was no sign of Tragan. His disappearance seemed to baffle even the most experienced search and rescue personnel. Days turned into weeks, and on August 4th, a small glimmer of hope emerged. A pair of sunglasses was found in Kintla Creek in the North Fork area of the park. Given their location and the circumstances of Tragan's disappearance, The sunglasses were believed to belong to Traegen. This discovery prompted a renewed focus on the area around Kintla Creek. Canine search units were brought in, and the dogs showed interest at the outlet of Kintla Lake. Despite this promising lead, no further signs of Traegen were found. The search efforts intensified. The park staff, in cooperation with Flathead County Search and Rescue, continued to comb the area. Advanced search methods were employed, including the use of a remotely operated underwater vehicle to explore the depths of Kintla Lake. This technology allowed search teams to access areas that were otherwise unreachable. But despite these extensive efforts, no additional clues to Traegen's whereabouts emerged. As the days wore on, the reality of the situation began to sink in. On August 10, 2020, the National Park Service made the difficult decision to scale back the search operation. The absence of new leads and the challenging conditions of the search area necessitated a change in approach. The investigation into Traegen's disappearance remained open, but moved into a limited, continuous mode. Rangers continued to conduct periodic checks of the area, and any potential new information was pursued diligently. The remote setting of Kintla Lake and Traegen's age raised several possibilities regarding his disappearance. It was presumed that he may have encountered an accident or a medical emergency while hiking alone. The challenging topography and unpredictable weather conditions in Glacier National Park create formidable survival challenges, even for the most experienced hikers. Despite scaling back active search efforts, hope for finding Traegen persisted. His family, friends, and the National Park Service remained optimistic, believing that fresh evidence or information might eventually come to light and unravel the mystery of his disappearance. However, when that breakthrough will occur remains to be determined. Back in 2014, it was a beautiful evening at the Skukuza Golf Course, situated within the expanse of Kruger National Park. Jacques van der Sant, a 29-year-old with a deep-seated love for the outdoors, had returned to the park where he spent his early years, visiting his parents who worked there. As Jacques and a friend took to the golf course, their laughter echoed across the verdant expanse. Jacques was no stranger to adventure. Growing up within the beauty of Kruger National Park, he developed a profound appreciation for nature's wonders. His parents, Schalk and Laretha van der Sant, had dedicated their lives to preserving the park, instilling in Jacques a reverence for the wilderness surrounding him. Jacques and his friend kept playing golf until it was time to retrieve some golf balls in Lake Panic to continue their game. Although there were warnings, Jacques and his friend became curious about how many golf balls they could retrieve in the lake. Ignoring the warnings against swimming in the park's dams and rivers, he waded into the shallows, his friend following suit. Perhaps the nostalgia of his youth or the moment's thrill compelled him to venture into the water, heedless of the lurking dangers beneath the surface. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Jacques, a predator lurked in the depths of Lake Panic. Crocodiles, emerging from their winter hibernation, hungered for their first meal in months. With instinctual precision, one of these ancient reptiles, measuring nearly 4 meters in length, silently stalked its unsuspecting prey, its predatory gaze fixed upon Jacques as he reached into the water to retrieve golf balls. In an instant, the peacefulness of the evening shattered as the crocodile surged forward, its mighty jaws closing around Jacques' chest with bone-crushing force. The force of the attack was swift and merciless, dragging Jacques beneath the surface in a flurry of thrashing water. Paralyzed with shock, his friend could only watch in horror as Jacques disappeared beneath the murky depths. The night air was rent with the frantic cries of Jacques' companion, the sound echoing through the stillness of the park. Aligned with the unfolding tragedy, rangers sprang into action, their searchlights piercing the darkness as they combed the waters for any sign of Jacques. They scoured the depths for hours, their hearts heavy with dread as the minutes ticked. Finally, a glimmer of hope emerged, the silhouette of the crocodile, its victim trapped in its lethal embrace. With determination, the rangers aimed, their rifles echoing as they sought to free Jacques from the jaws of death. As the creature's lifeless body surfaced, the full extent of the tragedy became apparent. Once full of life and vitality, Jacques van der Sant had become another victim of nature's unforgiving wrath. His body was found without any signs of mutilation, except for the teeth marks that were present on his front and back. His untimely death shocked the tight-knit community of Kruger National Park, leaving behind sorrow and grief within his family and friends. In the aftermath of the terrifying incident, Speculation ran rampant as to what had led to Jacques' demise. Some pointed to the reckless disregard for park regulations, citing the ban on swimming in the dams and rivers as a clear indication of the dangers hidden beneath the surface. Others questioned the efficacy of park management, raising concerns about predatory animals near recreational areas. What if Jacques had heeded the warnings against swimming in the park's dams and rivers, choosing to enjoy the golf course from a safe distance instead? A compelling tale of greed, sorrow, and retribution unraveled in the sprawling, majestic landscape of Kruger National Park, where the vast African savanna rolls out like an unending tapestry under the expansive sky. Amidst the diverse tapestry of wildlife and the untouched natural beauty, human desires clashed with the brutal realities of nature, setting the stage for a poignant drama that echoed the timeless struggles of life and survival. It began with a man whose name has since faded into obscurity. He was a suspected rhino poacher, driven by the promise of profit and the temptation of easy riches. His life before Kruger National Park was shadowy, shrouded in mystery and speculation. Some whispered of a troubled past, others of a desperate present, but the truth remained elusive. With him were 4 accomplices, their faces obscured by the darkness of the night as they ventured into the heart of the wilderness. Their aim? To hunt the majestic rhinoceros, a creature whose very existence was threatened by the insatiable demand for its horn. Despite poaching being illegal, as rhinos are now critically endangered, people still wanted to hunt them for its high price, ranging from $27,000 a pound to $7,000 an ounce. It's $400 more expensive than gold. No wonder these poachers wanted to get deficient rhino horns. Armed with weapons and fueled by greed, they stalked their prey with a ruthless determination, heedless of the consequences that awaited them. But nature, with its sense of justice, had other plans. As they moved deeper into the park, their footsteps echoing in the night, fate intervened in the form of an elephant, a towering animal whose rage knew no bounds. With a suddenness that caught them off guard, the massive creature charged, its tusks gleaming in the moonlight as it unleashed its anger upon the interlopers who dared to trespass upon its territory. In the chaos that ensued, the suspected poacher met his demise, his life snuffed out in an instant by the brute force of nature's wrath. His companions, gripped by fear and panic, fled into the darkness, leaving behind the lifeless body of their fallen comrade. But nature's revenge was not yet complete. In the days that followed, a search party searched the wilderness for the missing man, their efforts hampered by the park's vastness and their quarry's elusive nature. Eventually, their perseverance was rewarded as they stumbled upon a gruesome scene that bore witness to nature's brutal efficiency. Amidst the undergrowth, they discovered the remains of the suspected poacher, picked clean by a pride of lions whose hunger knew no bounds. All that remained were a human skull and a pair of pants. As news of the tragedy spread, the park's managing executive, Glenn Phillips, offered his condolences to the family of the deceased, lamenting the senseless loss of life that had occurred. But even as he spoke, the wheels of justice were already in motion, as 3 of the suspected poacher's accomplices were apprehended and brought to justice. For them, as for their fallen comrade, the price of their crimes would be paid in full. But amidst the tragedy, lots of questions lingered, including, what drove these men to risk their lives in pursuit of rhino horn? And perhaps most chilling of all, what other horrors lay hidden in the depths of Kruger National Park, waiting to be revealed? What if their greed had not closed their eyes to the dangers that lurked in the shadows? What if they had heeded the warnings and respected the sanctity of the park? And what if, in the end, nature's retribution was a warning to us all?
Saturday, June 5, 2021, 26-year-old Cassie Brown, an avid canyoneer and beloved guide for the Zion Adventure Company, went on a solo canyoneering trip in Zion National Park. In the past, she had often joined other local canyoneers in trying out different terrains. Other times, she had also gone with her mother, who was a fellow enthusiast. However, she chose to go alone on this particular day for unknown reasons. Given Cassie's love for the hobby and her known dedication to safety, her trip was expected to be just another normal one, filled with the thrill of exploration. However, when she stepped out that morning, none of her family could have imagined it would be the last time they would see her alive. As she made her way through the trip, Brown reached a canyon that many considered easy to navigate. Just as she descended off it, she faced a challenge she hadn't anticipated. Her rope, a trusted lifeline that had secured previous descents, unexpectedly got stuck on a rappel. She repeatedly tried to shake it free from the rope, but it refused to budge. At this point, she was at a crossroads of choice. She could either wait for people to find her or try to ascend the rope to her previous route. But since there was no guarantee anyone else would traverse the canyon that day, the prospect of spending a long night trapped halfway down seemed not to appeal to her. Brown then decided to take the bold option of ascending the rope. Regrettably, her choice proved to be ill-fated. While ascending the rope, it unexpectedly gave way at some point. This sudden release propelled her into a harrowing free fall of approximately 50 to 80 feet, ending with her body crashing mercilessly onto the unforgiving rocky terrain below. The impact instantly inflicted her with multiple severe injuries, including broken bones in different parts of her body. An hour after Brown's fall, another group of canyon explorers stumbled upon her abandoned climbing gear. To them, it clearly indicated that a hiker had run into some trouble somewhere within the canyon. Taking the initiative, a member of the party was sent back to inform Zion's search and rescue team, who immediately mobilized their resources and expertise to locate and aid Brown. As the search for Brown intensified, the search and rescue team took decisive measures to ensure her swift rescue, even though it was initially unclear where she had fallen. They temporarily closed off several surrounding hiking routes vital for accessing the canyon, such as the Narrows, Mystery, and Orderville canyons. Even popular stops like the Temple of Sinawava shuttle stop and Riverside Walk were also closed off during the search period. A rescue helicopter was also dispatched to further facilitate the search. However, the canyon's sheer steepness and narrow confines prevented it from reaching Brown's location. After a few hours, medical personnel finally managed to reach Brown, who was lying on the ground, barely alive. They began administering initial treatments and preparation for moving her out of the canyon into the hospital. But sadly, this was a futile effort. Within moments of their arrival, she passed away, succumbing to the injuries she had sustained after her fall. Brown's body was later recovered from the canyon on Sunday evening and taken to the morgue. An investigation was opened to determine the exact cause of the accident, although foul play was not suspected. Following her death, Brown received many tributes from friends and other canyoneers who frequented Zion National Park. One person said she always brought a valued and skilled perspective to the limestone slots of the Grand Canyon and was a masterful practitioner in the art of canyoning. Another person remarked that she was dedicated to service and sharing her knowledge and love of the outdoors with others.
Richard Judd, a 72-year-old hiker from Berkeley, California, was an experienced and passionate explorer of the wilderness. On July 25, 2021, he set out for what he anticipated would be another invigorating hike through Yosemite National Park. A hiking partner accompanied him, and their planned route took them from Lower Merced Pass Lake to Red Peak Pass, a journey that promised breathtaking vistas and the serene beauty of Yosemite's rugged terrain. As they began their hike, the day was typical for late July in Yosemite. The morning air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue, and the towering trees provided welcome shade along their path. Richard, standing 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighing 150 pounds, with brown eyes, short graying hair, and a beard, was a seasoned hiker who had trekked through numerous challenging landscapes before. On this particular day, he wore a blue shirt and gray pants and used white trekking poles to navigate the uneven ground. His navy blue day pack carried essential supplies for their journey. The route from Lower Merced Pass Lake, located at an elevation of approximately 8,800 feet, to Red Peak Pass was known for its stunning beauty and challenging terrain. Richard and his partner moved steadily along the trail, enjoying the natural splendor that surrounded them. However, as the day progressed, the weather began to shift. The daytime temperatures in Yosemite Valley soared to the upper 80s to about 100 degrees, with the intense heat reflecting off the rocky surfaces. Despite the sweltering conditions, Richard pressed on, his love for hiking and the outdoors driving him forward. As they neared the halfway point of their hike, the two hikers became separated. Whether it was a momentary lapse in communication, a divergence in their chosen paths, or an unexpected distraction, Richard found himself alone. The realization that he was separated from his partner wasn't immediately alarming. However, as hours passed and the oppressive heat of the day gave way to the cooler temperatures of the evening, concern began to set in. Richard's partner, unable to locate him, returned to their last known camp at Lower Merced Pass Lake and reported his disappearance to the authorities. The National Park Service was swiftly alerted, and an extensive search and rescue operation was launched. The search for Richard Judd was a massive undertaking. Park rangers, search and rescue teams, and numerous volunteers scoured the area where he was last seen. Helicopters and drones were deployed to cover the vast and rugged terrain from the air, while ground teams navigated the challenging landscape, calling out for Richard and searching for any signs of his presence. The daytime temperatures remained high, posing additional challenges for the search teams. At the same time, nighttime lows in the mid-60s provided some relief, but also underscored the urgency of finding Richard as quickly as possible. Despite the exhaustive efforts of the search teams, no trace of Richard was found in the days following his disappearance. The rough terrain and harsh weather conditions where Richard vanished suggested that he might have encountered an injury or medical crisis that hindered his return to camp or communication with authorities. Given his experience and resourcefulness, there was still optimism that he may have sought shelter and was awaiting rescue. Tips and potential sightings were diligently followed up, but each lead seemed to end in frustration. As days turned into weeks, the initial search transitioned from a full-scale operation to a more limited but ongoing effort. The National Park Service continued to urge the public to report any sightings or information that could aid in locating Richard. Flyers with his description were posted throughout the park, and hikers were advised to keep an eye out for any clues that might lead to his discovery. The mystery of Richard Judd's disappearance weighed heavily on those who knew him. Friends and family members were left in a painful limbo, torn between hope and despair. Richard had always been a pillar of strength and adventure in their lives, and the uncertainty of his fate was a burden they struggled to bear. His love for the outdoors had taken him on countless adventures, but now that same passion had seemingly led to an inexplicable disappearance. Over the next few months, sporadic search efforts continued as new areas were explored and previously searched regions were re-examined. Volunteers remained dedicated, and the Yosemite hiking community rallied around the effort to find Richard. His story became a sad reminder of the risks inherent in exploring the wilderness, no matter how experienced or prepared one might be. Despite the passage of time, the search for Richard Judd continued. Each year, as the anniversary of his disappearance approached, renewed efforts were made to find him. Search teams revisited the area, hoping that changes in the landscape or seasonal variations might reveal new clues. Yet as the second and third years passed without any breakthroughs, the hope of finding Richard began to wane. Richard's disappearance remained a mystery, a haunting reminder of the unpredictable and sometimes unforgiving nature of the wilderness.
On Tuesday, November 20th, 2022, a 33-year-old man and his 31-year-old wife, a married couple, embarked on a permitted 16-mile journey through the Narrows in Zion National Park. This hike typically involves wading through the chilly waters of the Virgin River as it winds its way through an expansive slot canyon. In this area, cell phone reception is virtually non-existent because of its distance from cell towers, and the solid rock and earth forming a canyon also absorb or weaken any signals that manage to penetrate through. While this might have seemed daunting to many, the couple definitely didn't feel this way about the hike. As planned, they quickly covered the miles in good time. However, as nightfall approached, their situation took a turn for the worse. Despite starting the hike with temperatures at a relatively comfortable 49 degrees, the weather unexpectedly plummeted to dangerously low levels. Shockingly, it continued to drop steadily, even plunging below the freezing point. The cold soon proved overwhelming for the couple as they made their way along the hiking trail. It was even worsened by their lack of proper protective gear to ward off the chill. Before long, they began exhibiting symptoms consistent with hypothermia. This condition occurs when the body's temperature drops below normal levels because it's losing heat faster than it can generate it. Sometime during the night, they decided to set up camp and wait until morning instead of pressing on with their hike. They chose a spot approximately 1.5 miles from the end of their intended route. If they had forged ahead just a little more, they would have been able to get help, as there were facilities at the end of the trail. However, they did not, and by morning, their condition had deteriorated further from the previous night. At this point, the woman seemed worse off than the man. Seeing his wife's condition, the man, who was also severely injured, summoned the last of his strength to continue the journey alone and seek help for his wife. Eventually, he encountered park visitors who swiftly came to his aid and notified the authorities. Over 20 search and rescue team members were promptly mobilized and rushed to the couple's stopping point. Upon their arrival, the search and rescue team discovered the man receiving assistance from fellow hikers. He was promptly transported to the Zion Emergency Operations Center for urgent medical treatment. Further along the trail, they located his wife near the Virgin River, where she lay unresponsive. Despite efforts to resuscitate her by one of the hikers, she did not respond. Tragically, it was soon confirmed that she had passed away. An investigation into the cause of the woman's death was initiated, although it was ultimately presumed to have been caused by the effects of hypothermia. To this date, the couple's names are still not known to the public, possibly due to privacy reasons. Angel's Landing Trail has been a beloved destination in Zion National Park since it opened to the public in the summer of 1926. Renowned for its awe-inspiring views, the trail draws in hundreds of thousands of hikers annually, all eager to tackle the challenge it presents. Even under ideal conditions, navigating the Angel's Landing Trail requires remarkable coordination. The ascent is long and steady, with an elevation gain of nearly 1,500 feet. As a hiker makes the climb, they may experience dehydration, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke as they experience more sun rays. There is also no water available on the entire route, making it compulsory for every climber to carry at least a quart or two of water if they are to survive the hike. The ultimate challenge comes when climbers reach the last half mile of the trek. At this point, they must continue hiking by holding on to the chains that run parallel to the trail, or else they risk falling into the orange sandstone. Despite the trail's reputation for its challenging terrain and potential risks, 45-year-old Tate Ryan Volino from Osprey, Florida, decided to hike up the trail like countless others before him. On March 3, 2017, he began the trek, which is approximately a 5.4-mile round trip on the eastern edge of Refrigerator Canyon. Rather than joining a group hike, which often provides a sense of security and assistance in times of trouble, Volino opted for a solo expedition. His decision to go solo suggests that he was an experienced hiker, although it was never confirmed. At some point during the climb, Volino fell off one of the higher points on the trail, plummeting straight down to his death. There was no one with him when it happened, so it was unclear what led to his fall. Shortly after, a couple of hikers in the vicinity discovered Volino lying sprawled out motionless on the rocky terrain. They quickly contacted Zion Park's authorities about the situation they had encountered. Thereafter, personnel were dispatched to secure the area and close the trail from other hikers while the park's search and rescue team recovered the body of Volino. The trail was reopened later that day after Volino's body had been taken away. An investigation carried out into Volino's untimely death revealed a high visibility of trauma on his body. This was consistent with injuries sustained from a high fall, although the exact height he fell from remained unknown. His death was later characterized as a tragic hiking accident, as reported by the park authorities. It also marked the 15th death on the Angel's Landing Trail and the first for that year. While he was alive, Volino was known as a prolific writer who once worked in the financial services sector. He wrote numerous golf-themed books and fictional works, including The Front Nine and Pull the Pin. Beyond his literary pursuits, he dedicated his time to volunteering with organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, demonstrating his commitment to serving his community. Additionally, he found solace and joy in kayaking whenever he could seize the opportunity. At the time of his tragic passing, he was survived by his loving wife and 2 sons, whose names were never disclosed.
Azaria Chantel Lauren Chamberlain was born on June 11, 1980. Her family was camping at Ayers Rock, now known as Uluru, in the Northern Territory. Azaria went missing from the family tent when she was just 9 weeks old. Her parents, Lindy and Michael Chamberlain, said a dingo had taken her. 3 people also reported hearing Azaria's cries the night she vanished from the family's campsite at Uluru. Lindy Chamberlain also said she saw a dingo coming out of the tent, and dingo tracks were found around and inside the tent. Large amounts of blood from Azaria were found on the tent mattress, on other items, near the carry basket where she had been sleeping, and next to the dingo tracks. After the alarm was raised, Aboriginal and white trackers followed the dingo prints until they mixed with human shoe prints on the road. They discovered drag marks in the sand and 2 shallow spots where something had been placed, likely while the dingo rested. These spots showed the imprint of a knitted garment, and there were tiny dark patches nearby, which they suspected to be blood. An investigation was conducted to find out what had happened because of the unusual and suspicious circumstances surrounding the event. This investigation ran from December 15, 1980 to February 20, 1981, and was just the first of several investigations into Azaria's death. The investigator, Dennis Barrett, concluded that it was a dingo that snatched and caused Azaria's death. The Chamberlains were found not to be involved in their child's disappearance. Soon enough, rumors started to spread, partly started by some members of the media and police. Although the first inquest concluded that Azaria had been attacked by a dingo and criticized the police for their poor work, some officers were reportedly opposed to accepting the dingo theory. They believed their evidence against the Chamberlains was more reliable. Feeling attacked by the coroner's findings, some decided to set things right in their view. 8 months later, a nationwide operation called Operation Ochre was launched, during which police searched the Chamberlains' home and seized many items. At the same time, all eyewitnesses were visited by police who asked for statements. It soon became clear what their focus was. When eyewitnesses described what they had seen or heard, police told them they did not want to hear about a dingo and insisted it was a murder investigation. The first inquest findings were thrown away, and the second inquest did not make a finding, but out of nowhere decided that the Chamberlains should stand trial. Afterwards, Lindy Chamberlain was charged with murder, while Michael Chamberlain was charged as an accessory to murder. With Judge Justice Muirhead and a jury presiding over their trial, it began on February 13, 1982, in Darwin. The media heavily covered the trial, mostly in a negative light towards the Chamberlains. One of the most shocking claims during the trial was that dingoes do not attack humans. The prosecutor, Ian Barker QC, reportedly dismissed the evidence of the drag marks as a red herring and focused instead on the bloodstains found in the family's car. The jury held both parents guilty on October 29, 1982. Lindy Chamberlain was convicted of murdering her baby, based on the idea that she had cut Azaria's throat in the family car and hid the body in a camera case. The evidence included a blood-stained jumpsuit found near the site where she went missing and a forensic report suggesting fetal hemoglobin. Lindy Chamberlain was sentenced to life in prison on October 19, 1982, while Michael Chamberlain received an 18-month jail sentence, which was later suspended because their children, Aidan and Reagan, needed a parent to care for them. The Chamberlains made several unsuccessful appeals, including a final one to the High Court. A breakthrough finally came in 1986. Azaria's jacket was found in an area with many dingo lairs, which led to Lindy's release from prison. On September 15, 1988, the Northern Territory Court of Criminal Appeals threw away all convictions against Lindy and Michael. A third investigation in 1995 resulted in an open finding. At a fourth inquest on June 12, 2012, Coroner Elizabeth Morris concluded that a dingo had taken Azaria and caused her death. After her release, Lindy was compensated with $1.3 million for false imprisonment and an amended death certificate was issued.
Jim Shadid, a 79-year-old seasoned hiker, had always been a man of the outdoors. Born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, he spent much of his youth exploring the vast plains and hunting with his family. His love for nature was evident from a young age, and it only grew stronger as he got older. After a successful career as a dentist, Jim decided to retire early, selling his dental practice and moving to Durango, Colorado, to be closer to the mountains and the outdoor activities he loved so much. Durango, with its stunning scenery and access to numerous outdoor activities, was the perfect place for Jim and his wife Marilyn to settle down. The couple had been married for 56 years, and they shared a deep love for the outdoors. Together they raised their children with the same appreciation for nature that they had. Over the past 2 decades, Jim has become an integral part of the Durango community. He is known for his adventurous spirit and willingness to share his knowledge of the wilderness with others. Jim was familiar with hiking, backpacking, and hunting. He had been hunting since he was 12 years old, and his skills and knowledge of the wilderness were well respected. He was also an avid skier, frequently hitting the slopes at Purgatory Resort, and in his later years, he developed a passion for pickleball. On September 3, 2023, Jim set out for what was supposed to be a routine hike to scout elk in the Elbert Creek area near Line Canyon. Although this was an area he hiked in frequently, he had studied the trail maps meticulously before heading out. Jim planned to check the trail briefly and then return to his vehicle to grab lunch and his gear for a longer trek. He anticipated being gone for only about 90 minutes. However, after 45 minutes, he called Marilyn on the radio, saying he would return in 20 minutes. That was the last anyone heard from him. Jim was last seen wearing a tan safari hat and long khaki pants. When he didn't return as expected, concern quickly grew, and a large-scale search and rescue effort was initiated. The challenging terrain between the Little Elk Creek Trail and Elbert Creek Road near Line Canyon made the search difficult, but the community rallied together. For 8 days, volunteers, search and rescue teams, and countless agencies worked tirelessly to find him. Helicopters, drones, bloodhounds, horses, ATVs, and around 100 volunteers scoured the area, but there was no sign of Jim. By September 11th, the operation transitioned from search and rescue to search and recovery, as the likelihood of Jim's survival in the harsh mountain conditions dwindled. Despite the shift in focus, the efforts to find him continued. La Plata County Search and Rescue even developed a digital map that volunteers could use to check off areas where they had searched. This innovative approach allowed for a more organized and thorough search. The Shadid family was deeply moved by the community's outpouring of support and the dedication of the search and rescue teams. Although they held on to hope, they also began to accept the heartbreaking reality that Jim might never be found. His daughter Jamie expressed a sense of acceptance, believing that her father had found peace in the nature he loved so much. During hunting seasons, the Shadids encouraged people to be on the lookout for anyone who might appear lost or disoriented in the Elbert Creek area. They knew that Jim would want others to be safe, and that the search for him might help prevent future tragedies. In the final attempt to find any clues about Jim's whereabouts, a technical team was scheduled to navigate a remote area to follow up on scant leads. Despite these efforts, Jim Shadid's fate remained unknown. It is presumed that he succumbed to the severe mountain conditions after potentially getting disoriented and deviating from his intended path. Jim's disappearance was a significant loss for his family and the Durango community. He was not only a beloved husband, father, and friend, but also a nature enthusiast who cherished the Colorado wilderness he called home. His legacy lived on in the stories and memories shared by those who knew him, and his adventurous spirit continued to inspire others to explore the great outdoors with caution and respect. The search for Jim highlighted the risks associated with wilderness exploration, even for experienced hikers. It underscored the importance of preparation, communication, and the need for a buddy system when venturing into remote areas. Jim's meticulous planning and familiarity with the wilderness were not enough to prevent his disappearance.
On September 9th, 2023, the Easton family from Paul, Idaho, was enjoying what should have been a normal camping trip at the Pine Campground in Boise National Forest. Cadence Easton, their 8-year-old twin daughter, was there with her parents, Quinn and Natasha Easton, together with her 7 siblings and her twin sister London. The family had looked forward to this retreat as a chance to reconnect with each other and and have some time away. Early in the morning, just around 5 a.m., tragedy struck. A large tree that had weakened over time suddenly fell on the tent where Cadence, London, and their beloved pet dog Sybil were sleeping. The impact was instantly fatal to Cadence and Sybil. A family friend, who was also camping nearby, said he had heard a loud sound and immediately rushed to the scene. Men from the Elmore County Sheriff's Office arrived promptly. Cadence was pronounced dead only shortly after their arrival, despite their best efforts to revive her. The shock and sadness of this event were overwhelming for her parents and the entire family. The tree that fell was found to be a rotting cottonwood, a type of tree that had been weakened due to age and environmental factors. Officials later stated that previous wildfires in the area might also have contributed to the tree's weakened state. Cadence was remembered fondly by everyone who knew her. Described as an exceptional child, she had a cheerful disposition and a warm, constant smile. Her family fondly recalled her deep love for animals and her special bond with their dog, Sybil, who had been curled beside her when the accident occurred. Cadence's bright and eager personality shone through in her schoolwork, and she often preferred the company of adults at family gatherings, showing maturity and intelligence beyond her years. Raised in a Christian home, she was taught to be kind. She was a child who made friends quickly and avoided getting into a fight. In response to the tragedy, a GoFundMe page was created to help the Easton family with funeral and other related expenses. The campaign has since raised over $28,000, showing the community's generosity and support. The Easton family has also expressed their gratitude for the outpouring of support and the heartfelt condolences they've received. Authorities continue to investigate the incident, looking into the effects that past wildfires may have had on the trees.
On July 3, 2018, 31-year-old Aaron Gibbons set off for a trip that would forever change his family and community. A skilled hunter and dedicated father, Aaron embodied the deep-rooted traditions of Arviat, Nunavut, a remote Inuit community in Canada's north. Arviat's people have long coexisted with some of nature's most formidable creatures, including polar bears, yet nothing could have prepared them for what was to come that day. Aaron's life in Arviat was deeply connected to his culture and the natural world around him. Though he worked at a gold mine in the Arctic, he remained firmly tied to his hometown, supporting his community through his skill in hunting and gathering. The trip to Sentry Island that summer day was a chance for Aaron to pass on these traditions to his children. He had taken them there to collect Arctic tern eggs, a local delicacy, teaching his young ones the age-old skills of gathering food and respecting their environment. Sentry Island, a rugged Arctic outpost known for its sandy beaches and abundance of wildlife, was a popular local spot for hunting and fishing. For Aaron and his children, it offered not just food, but also an opportunity to enjoy a peaceful day together under the northern sun. As the afternoon progressed, Aaron watched his kids play and search for eggs. But as evening approached, a distant movement caught his eye, a glimpse of something large and pale blending into the tundra, a polar bear. In an instant, what had been a normal family trip turned into a desperate struggle for survival. The bear, one of the Arctic's most fearsome predators, was heading straight for Aaron's children. Without hesitation, the man sprang into action. He urged his kids to run to the boat while he placed himself between them and the bear, signaling with his actions that he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. The children obeyed, racing toward safety even as the sounds of their father's struggle echoed behind them. Aaron faced the bear alone, giving his life so his children could escape. Despite his efforts, the bear overpowered him, delivering a devastating loss to his family and community. In the aftermath, nearby people on the island heard the children's cries for help and quickly responded, ultimately killing the bear and securing the children's safe return. Aaron's body, however, was badly mauled and covered in bites, and the loss left those who knew him in profound grief. In Arviat, the shock was palpable. Aaron was revered as a hero who had made the ultimate sacrifice. His death also intensified a conversation in the region about the increasing proximity of polar bears to human settlements. For years, members of the community had noticed that polar bears were growing less fearful of humans, venturing closer to Arviat and other towns on the Hudson Bay coast. Many residents blamed tourism activities from nearby Churchill, where polar bear walking tours were a popular attraction, for desensitizing bears to humans. Aaron's uncle, Gordy Kidlepik, a respected local elder and director of Arviat's Hunters and Trappers Association, spoke out publicly about the issue, drawing attention to the potential dangers of close human-bear interactions. He argued that activities catering to tourists could inadvertently contribute to bear encounters in their communities. In 2020, Aaron Gibbons' bravery was formally recognized when he was posthumously awarded Canada's Star of Courage, an honor reserved for those who have shown remarkable courage in the face of grave danger. His story resonated across Canada, a testament to the love a father had for his children and the lengths he went to protect them. It was July 2024, and 19-year-old Maria Diana was hiking with her boyfriend in the Carpathian Mountains, Romania. The young woman had just graduated from high school and wanted to spend a few days relaxing in the middle of nature. She'd gone hiking in the mountains before, but nothing could have prepared her for the terrifying encounter that would tragically end her life. At 19 years old, Maria Diana from Bucharest, Romania, had just graduated from high school and finished her final exams. The young woman had recently gone hiking in the Carpathian Mountains and had decided she wanted to do it again. That July day, Maria and her boyfriend were exploring the scenic Yepai Michi Trail, a well-known but difficult and challenging path near the city of Brasov. They wanted to reach the Spumoasa waterfall, known for its beautiful views. Not everyone was as excited about the hike as Maria Diana was. Her mother, who was pregnant at the time, tried to persuade the girl not to go. The older woman warned Maria of the dangers, but Maria was adamant about the hike. She told her mother nothing bad would happen to her, then proceeded with the hike. But her anticipation of a peaceful hike, however, was shattered when Maria and her boyfriend encountered an aggressive brown bear on the trail. The attack happened suddenly and with terrifying force. The bear first spotted Maria and her boyfriend, and then charged toward them. As the animal neared, they both desperately attempted to call for help. Maria managed to get through to emergency services, and her boyfriend also made a call, informing dispatchers of the bear's aggressive behavior and their location. In her frantic phone call, Maria cried out, describing how the bear was getting closer, her fear evident in every word. Emergency operators could hear her scream and could only listen as the horrific encounter played out. The bear seized Maria by her leg, dragging her from the trail and into the nearby vegetation, before forcefully throwing her down a steep 400-foot cliff. Tragically, the injuries Maria sustained were described by rescuers as incompatible with life. She was covered in teeth and claw marks. When the rescue team from Salvamont Prahova arrived, the bear was still in the area, circling Maria's body and posing a serious threat to anyone nearby. The bear had to be shot after it attempted to attack the rescuers, who then carefully worked to retrieve Maria's body from the rugged terrain below. It was a harrowing operation that underscored the seriousness of the incident and highlighted the dangers of Romania's remote mountain regions. The head of the rescue team, Dan Banu, expressed the horror of the situation, stating that such a harrowing attack was unlike anything he had seen in over a decade. Maria's boyfriend, who witnessed the attack but was unharmed, later shared how he tried to scare the bear away, but the animal's aggression was relentless. He struggled with guilt and regret, reportedly telling the media he wished he could have done more, or that it had been him instead of Maria. This tragedy has sparked a national debate on Romania's approach to wildlife management, particularly concerning its large bear population. Romania is home to the largest brown bear population in Europe outside Russia, with an estimated 8,000 bears inhabiting its forests and mountains. Local authorities pointed out that this kind of attack was uncharacteristic, with experts speculating that disease or other environmental factors could have contributed to the bear's behavior. The incident has prompted Romanian officials to address the risks posed by the country's bear population, leading to the approval of a controversial culling measure. Lawmakers sanctioned the culling of nearly 500 bears this year, citing concerns about overpopulation and public safety. Environmental groups, however, argue that culling is a reactive and insufficient measure that fails to address the root causes of human-wildlife conflict. They stress the importance of habitat protection, controlled ecotourism, and better trail warnings in bear-dense areas as alternatives. Maria Diana's tragic death serves as a solemn reminder of the risks associated with exploring wild terrain. D. Roberts III was a dedicated educator at Middleton High School in Tampa Bay, Florida, where he had been imparting knowledge in business tech and web design since August 2014. With a reputation for his commitment to his students and a passion for teaching, Roberts had carved a niche for himself within the school district. Known for his adventurous spirit and love for the outdoors, he often sought solace and inspiration in nature. This penchant for adventure led him to join a 9-day backpacking excursion in the Grand Canyon on June 17, 2016, an expedition that would mark the beginning of an enduring mystery. The Shivwits Plateau, located in the remote western section of the Grand Canyon, is known for its breathtaking vistas and challenging terrain. Roberts, along with a group of fellow adventurers, set out to explore this rugged landscape. The Grand Canyon, with its awe-inspiring beauty and treacherous paths, demands respect and preparedness from those who traverse its trails. On that fateful day, the group faced extreme heat conditions, a common but dangerous element in the region during summer. Around 4:45 p.m., near an area known as Kelly Tank, Roberts became separated from his companions. This separation, seemingly innocuous at first, would later evolve into a dire situation. The last known direction in which he was seen heading was towards Trail Canyon and 214-Mile Canyon, possibly descending into 209-Mile Canyon towards the Colorado River. From that point, Roberts vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of questions and concerns. The immediate response from the National Park Service, NPS, was both swift and extensive. Recognizing the gravity of the situation and the potential dangers posed by the harsh environment, the NPS launched a comprehensive 6-day search and rescue operation. Ground crews meticulously combed through the area, helicopters scoured the landscape from above, and search dogs were deployed to sniff out any potential clues. Despite these exhaustive efforts, no sign of Roberts was found. The harsh realities of the Grand Canyon's environment cannot be overstated. The extreme heat, coupled with the challenging terrain and isolated location, presents significant risks to even the most experienced hikers. The possibility of Roberts encountering an accident or suffering a medical emergency such as heat exhaustion or heat stroke loomed large. The rugged nature of the canyon, with its labyrinthine paths and unpredictable conditions, only compounded the difficulty of locating a missing person. As the days turned into weeks, the search operation transitioned to a continuous but limited mode. This meant that while the intensive search efforts were scaled back, rangers and pilots in the area remained vigilant, ready to act on any new leads or clues that might emerge. Flyers bearing Roberts' description were posted at various locations in hopes that someone might have seen or heard something that could shed light on his whereabouts. Roberts was last seen wearing a red long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, multicolored mesh Nike sneakers, a blue Lowa Alpine backpack, and white-rimmed sunglasses with orange lenses. This detailed description was crucial for anyone who might encounter him or his belongings in the vast expanse of the Grand Canyon. Tom Burnett, Roberts' neighbor for over 5 years, expressed profound sadness over his disappearance. Burnett shared that Roberts was no stranger to the Grand Canyon, having visited it before and harboring a deep affection for the great outdoors. His experience in hiking and familiarity with the area provided a glimmer of hope. Burnett remained optimistic, clinging to the hope that authorities would eventually find his friend. As the years passed, the hope for a resolution to Roberts' disappearance persisted, albeit with a sense of melancholy resignation. The NPS and Roberts' family continued to hold on to the possibility that new information or evidence might come to light. The enduring mystery of his disappearance left an indelible mark on those who knew him, and the search for answers remained a constant undercurrent in their lives. In March 1981, Carl McCunn, a 35-year-old wildlife photographer, embarked on what he thought would be a solitary expedition of discovery in the heart of Alaska's Brooks Range. He came to this remote wilderness with a vision of capturing the untamed beauty of the land and its wildlife, but a series of oversights left him stranded, helpless, and ultimately alone. McCunn, originally from Texas, was an avid adventurer who had already spent 5 months alone in the Brooks Range in 1976. In March 1981, he set out with the same confidence, perhaps bolstered by his previous experience. Carrying 500 rolls of film, nearly 1,400 pounds of provisions, and several firearms, he planned to spend the summer documenting the region's wildlife as they migrated back to their seasonal grounds. But he also carried a critical misjudgment, believing he had arranged for a friend to retrieve him by the end of summer. In his preparations, McCunn overlooked confirming his return transport. He had paid a pilot friend for repairs to a plane, but had only confirmed his flight in, not out of the wilderness. As the weeks turned into months, McCunn recorded his journey with meticulous detail, starting with descriptions of the vibrant wildlife that roamed nearby. He wrote with wonder, admiring how life in the wild unfolded around him. By August, though, his tone began to shift. His diary entries revealed a creeping awareness that he might be left behind. "I think I should have used more foresight about arranging my departure," he noted, showing a dawning realization that his plans might have gone terribly wrong. The situation grew dire as the expected plane never arrived, and summer slipped away. With dwindling supplies and colder nights, McCunn's focus turned to survival. He attempted to prolong his food stores by hunting ducks and muskrats, and even dried the meat of a caribou that had died in a nearby lake. In an effort to keep calm, he expressed hope that friends or family would grow concerned and send help. However, his isolation was compounded by a fateful misunderstanding. An Alaska state trooper spotted his camp in late August and circled it, but McCunn's casual wave with an orange sleeping bag gave the impression that he was not in distress. Later, he would come to recognize the signal he'd given was a sign for "all okay, do not wait," realizing too late that he had inadvertently waved away his only hope of rescue. By early fall, McCunn's diary reflected the shift from optimism to desperation. He continued trying to hunt, but game became scarce, and he now competed with wolves and foxes that stole the small rabbits he managed to snare. The cold intensified, and with frostbite setting in, McCunn struggled to maintain even the most basic tasks. The isolation, hunger, and brutal conditions began to break him. Still, he clung to hope, writing that he won't give up, even as he recorded days where his energy waned and provisions dwindled. As temperatures plummeted, McCunn found himself physically and mentally exhausted. He scribbled more desperately, his script devolving as he fought both hunger and the unrelenting cold. In November, with nothing left to eat and his body weakened, he abandoned any thought of making the 75-mile trek to Fort Yukon. His writing reflected despair. He was haunted by the possibility of being forgotten, and he began to contemplate an end to his suffering. The final pages of McCunn's diary reflect a man at the edge of hope. Near Thanksgiving, he described relentless chills and dizzy spells, feeling that his strength was slipping away. He used the last of his fuel to light a small fire, writing a farewell message in his diary. He left instructions for the development of his film and requested that whoever found him give his personal belongings to his father. His Alaska driver's license was pinned to the final note, where he humbly asked for forgiveness and wrote a prayer to his family. Then he took his own life. On February 2, 1982, after a months-long search effort spurred by concerned friends, Alaska state troopers arrived at McCunn's camp. They found his tent covered in snow, unzipping it to reveal his emaciated, frozen body. His diary, over 100 pages long, documented his gradual decline from an enthusiastic observer of the wilderness to a man gripped by despair and fatigue. The coroner's inquest later ruled that McCunn had taken his own life in those desolate surroundings, far from the safety of civilization.